Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 93rd episode of the Spiritual Brainstorm. In this video, I'd like to rediscuss the concept of multidimensionality and this idea that everything is happening, quote unquote, now. Um, so, this is a sort of an information that popped into my head just yesterday, so it's really fresh and it's not completely clear. So, I hope you'll be able to understand. And hopefully I'll be able to understand even what I got as a revelation, because it's really a bit mind bending. So here I'll represent the lifespan of different people. You could even say that these are, you could say, like, this is, for instance, a dog. This is your grandfather. This is your past, like another past life, very distant in the future. This is a plant. This is, let's say, your grandmother. And this is you. And imagine if each of you is kind of living certain emotions at different points in their now. For instance, this red represents a moment where you were afraid of something, fear, like fear for your life. And here, let's say that this is, oops. This green bar represents a moment in your life where you where you experience joy, bliss. Now, what I got as a revelation is that when you, from your now, are living joy, it's actually synchronized with all of the other experiences. That is what those lives are experiencing while you're experiencing joy. So what is synchronized is your emotional state, or your global overall experience. Let's see this. Yeah. So that's what's synchronized. That's what's happening in the now. And this also includes, by the way, your future lives, where if you're experiencing bliss, for instance, then that bliss is also synchronized with that future incarnation. And so, again, all of these also are also synchronized in the now. And so, from the subjective perspective of one consciousness streaming into this life, you have the impression that all of these events happen with a cause and effect. But from a multidimensional perspective, you're actually reliving your past and your future lives in a specific order that is unique. So you're resonating all the time with the experiences of all your past lives and all your future lives. And from their perspective, it's the same. They're also, when they're living from their moment in the now, when they're experiencing a certain emotion, they're connected to you in the future, living that emotion in the future. Now, this is a bit, I mean, my mind hurts just thinking about the implications of this, but it's almost as if all of these lives indeed are lived simultaneously. But what is simultaneous is not like they're the cause and effect, like they're happening now. It's more like the emotional states are synchronized, and like they're lived, but in a completely different order depending on which vantage point you take. If you're incarnated from your perspective, you live it in a certain order, and all of the other ones are experienced in a disorder from your perspective, because you're in this linear construct. And but from the linear construct of another person, it's you that is living your life in disorder, and completely like jumble up all the events, and they're resonating with the emotions of something happening to you in the past or something happening to you in the future. And this is what I believe now is also a much more accurate depiction of karma. Karma, this wheel, it's rather a series of wheels that are spinning at the same time, and you are kind of part of those wheels. You're intertwined with all of this. And so, there are future events here, like future emotions that you're bound to live. Oops, let's put this in blue, which reverberate with other emotions of your other lives. And because you're kind of tied to these, it's almost like you're one giant experience, you and all your past lives. And in order to exit this, in order to break the wheel of karma, it is kind of like hacking into your emotional state. And when you hear in the spiritual circles that the only thing that you can decide is not the external events, but how you feel about the events. You can control how you feel and how you respond, but you can't control outside events. And by achieving the control of how you respond and how you feel, you actually, it's almost as if you'd rip your wheel out of this sort of spiral. And so by saving yourself, you're actually saving everybody else, because you're kind of hacking your own emotional state. And if you decide from a certain vantage point that from this point on, all you're going to experience is kind of a higher kind of less, how should I say? Well, less fear. Try to be more neutral with regards to your emotions. Try not to be too attached to them. Then you're actually saving all of your past and future lives from a certain point on as well, where they are sort of influenced, of course, by this state that you are in. And you save a version of all of those lives. You save yourself and all the versions of your past lives and future lives by just changing the way that you feel. So that's why it's so important right now to do quantum healing, and to be really serious about um, how you feel. There's just so many. For instance, I was wondering why so many people go into study psychology, um, when clearly, I mean, is there so much demand for that? Like those options in university, those studies, they're often full. Like they have like 400, 500 students every year that go for degree in psychology. And I think that's no it isn't by chance. It's basically because in these times we have arrived at a point where it's going to be much more difficult to continue with this kind of logic, because we're meant to sort of transcend the human experience by becoming this global organism that I was talking about. And somebody has to, from one vantage point, break this circle, break the karma, break the cycle, break this logic, and break free. Basically, here you break free from this logic, And by doing so, you influence all of your past and all of your future lives, um, and making them be able to like process certain things like fear, like, um, I don't know what this is. Let's say that's sadness or grief. Um, yeah, and so I believe that's what the Buddhists um, refer to when they're talking about breaking the wheel of karma. And the Buddha, when he meditated basically and saw all of those past lives and future lives in his meditative state when he had his awakening, this is basically what happened to him. It's like he really released all of his future and past lives of this wheel. And I'm even referring here to plants or dogs, like you'd relive versions of more complex versions of what you've lived in other incarnations, even as an animal. For instance, if you had like cubs who were a wolf instead of a dog, and you had cubs that were killed by another predator, maybe in another past life it would happen to you, but as a human, where you would leave your house and somebody would come murder your kids, because it's the emotions sort of that reverberate across all your incarnations. And being able to process that as like an energy is the way that you neutralize those experiences, kind of, and you move beyond them. So I hope this was interesting. I mean, I'm not sure I understand this fully myself, because it's really hard to picture. But I think it clarifies the idea that, not like, when we say that everything is happening now, well, yes and no at the same time. That is, whatever you're feeling is what's happening across all of your past and future lives, not what's happening to the neighbor. Um, but so, like, the life of your grandfather, for instance, is not all of it is not happening now. Some of it is happening now, and what's happening is linked to how you're feeling. So hope that was clear. If you have any questions or for clarification, or feel free to just comment, because I'm still trying to figure all this out. And hope you found this interesting, and talk to you in the next video.